Ever headed out to play a gig with your saxophone, maybe playing solo, or maybe with a band, only to realize that you've forgotten something that's absolutely vital? Or worse, something breaks right before you're about to start playing. Look, I know it, we've all been there. It's absolutely the worst feeling in the world. And that's why as saxophone players, it's really, really important for us to be prepared and also to carry the right amount of kit with us. So in this episode, I'm joined with two legends from our Sax School Tutor team. We've got Fred Vigdor and Joel Purnell, and we're sharing the must-have gear that we always carry in our sax bags. So this is kind of like your ultimate everyday carry checklist for sax players. Stuff that could really save your bacon on your next gig. So there's some good stuff to talk about here. And well, first of all, how you doing, guys? How you doing, Fred? How you doing, Joel?
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Very well, thank you. Quite warm, actually. Very warm.
Are you warm? It
I
is
am
warm.
It's hot. It's hot here in the UK.
It is hot, yeah. But
makes a
nice.
change. I'm not used to it.
And in good British form, we're whinging about it already, aren't we?
Of course.
Now, I was thinking about this episode today that I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the list, well, first of all, there's a lot of stuff in my bag, in my sax bag, and I was realizing that it's something that's refined over decades of doing gigs. Like all those times when I wish I had that thing, and you stick it in. I wish I had that thing. And then it's like, oh, this is too heavy. I've got to minimize it. So it sort of refines it over a really long period of time. And you end up with this ultimate list of stuff that you always take that lives inside your case. Is it the same for you guys?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I have doubles of anything because I'm the kind of guy that would take it out of my case and then leave it and forget, and not put it back in. So I have an extra strap that never leaves my case. I have one here and then I have one in my case. Everything has doubles because I am notorious for getting to the gig and realize, I left that at home.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's start at the top, right? So let's start with the basics. So I think it might even be worth discussing the cases that we use. Now this is important actually because I remember my first saxophone I ever had was one of those standard fiberglass, big rectangular things. And it did have a little section in it, but they're a bit of a nightmare to actually use when you're traveling around doing gigs. So I have a shaped case that I use now, but one that has got some storage in it so I can fit all the stuff in that I need to take with me. So I'm presuming you guys have made a choice about the case purposefully as well. So how about we start with you, Fred? What sort of case do you use?
Well, I had a choice that was actually made for me. First of all, the fact that I am was constantly flying, playing with Average White Band for 30 years and being on planes. And it's really hard to take one of those rectangular cases and put them in the overhead because I never check my saxophone, never check it underneath. At one point, we traveled with a huge anvil, one of those road cases that had 3 horns in it. It was like a coffin, and that would get checked. But that thing was just ridiculous. So for a long time, I had a Walt Johnson case, which was kind of the state-of-the-art shaped case, really heavy duty, but the emphasis on heavy. It was even empty. It was just ridiculous. And I had back problems. I had back surgery in 2012. And my wife and I decided that even though it's very expensive, the case that I have, it's less expensive than having back surgery again. So I have a case that's made by a gentleman in Korea. They're called SJQ, and you can find them on Facebook. They are not cheap. But they are carbon fiber and Kevlar, so you can use it if somebody's shooting at you. You can hold it up in front of you. It is form-fitted. You tell the guy what saxophone you have. He molds it specifically to your horn, so there's not a lot of wiggle room there. It's definitely tight. It's held up forever, and like I said, you can look them up on Facebook. You can see them. They're beautiful cases, first of all, and really sturdy. And super light, and that was the thing, but super sturdy.
Can I just jump in and ask you, Fred? So this is for your tenor saxophone, and you said it's a form-fitted shaped saxophone. You're playing on a Yamaha, right?
Yamaha Custom Z, yeah.
Okay.
So I told them what I had, and it's form-fitted. So it fits. There's only one way it goes in. The good thing about it is that because it's also kind of floating a little bit. So even though it's very compact, there's room underneath the saxophone actually. So I can slide my reed case and some other things like under it, doesn't touch the saxophone. And so it's good for that. But it is limited. Like I have to put, I put stuff, my neck is in the bell and the neck's off. It's in the bell with the mouthpiece. There's between the bell and the body of the horn is where my sax strap goes. But yeah, it's tight, but it's much lighter and it's super sturdy. I never have to worry about it getting knocked around as it has. And my sax holds up really well in those situations.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so that's
SJQ.
Well, that sounds like the expensive option. Obviously proven because you've done about 1,000 flights with it and you've got away with checking it every single time and it hasn't broken.
Not checking it. No, not checking it.
Without checking it every time and it's not broken. Because, I mean, that's the thing though, right? Because there's that I made a video about that years ago because it's always that panic when you go up to get on the plane and you're trying to get past that gatekeeper with your saxophone over your shoulder. And then, because it's happened to me a few times. I'm sorry, sir. They're having a bad day or something. There's some memos come down from head office. I'm sorry, sir. You can't travel with that.
I recently had an issue like that with my sax case where this person was, and I fly all the time. For a while, I was flying every week. And this person wanted to put my saxophone, I had put it in the overhead, long-wise, and she took it out and she said, "Oh no, I think it'll fit this way." And she was trying to put it in head first, and I was like, "I'm sorry, but I mean, can you see?" And I was trying to I try to be charming in that situation because they can create trouble if you're not, Yeah. And as you guys know, it's difficult for me to be charming. But I tried not to say, "Do you not understand the laws of physics?" I mean, the thing is like sticking out like a foot. And she's like, "Oh, it'll get in here. It's just,
keep ramming it.
Exactly. And I was incredibly patient and people were looking at me like, "What's wrong with this woman?"
Can I just take down the date? What date was that where Fred was incredibly patient? What date was that?
Well, you have to, that's the other thing is I really, I try to get on as soon as I can on the plane. So I always have a space, because if you're like in group, if there's like 6 groups, group A, group B, whatever, and you're like group F, you're not going to get your sax on the plane. And I have nightmares about that, literally nightmares. Yeah. And my wife gives me constant grief because I will, I'll elbow an old lady to get on the plane fast.
Well, it's a tricky one because I can remember we used to do this regular gig. We flew from England to Canada to play a private party each December. And one of the years we were going over there was one of those times where they said, "Sorry, sir, you got to check your saxophone." And I got off the gig was in Halifax in Nova Scotia, a bit rattly. And the saxophone was just absolutely unplayable because somehow, even though we will hand deliver it underneath the plane. We're not hating on airlines. It's just a reality of being a saxophone player and traveling. And so then I had the challenge of how do I find a repairer or a replacement saxophone before the gig? Anyway, so the saxophone case that I use is kind of the other end of the spectrum from your fancy one. I use because I've had a few different shaped cases, but actually I really like this. It's the ProTech Pro Pack case. They're not that expensive actually, about $250 or something. I got one as a replacement case and I thought, I love this so much. I bought one for my alto as well, and they're just brilliant because they're shaped so they're reasonably compact and they're very secure. They've got great size pockets on them as well, so on the front and the back. So I can carry a lot of the stuff that we'll be talking about in this episode. I also like the fact, unlike your case where your neck goes down your saxophone, this has got a separate neck compartment, which is actually really important. So I don't know if you've had this problem, Fred, but so my saxophone is this Godala tenor. And when I first bought that, they came in a fiberglass case, a bit like your Waltz. What was it, Waltz?
Walt Johnson.
Walt Johnson case, a little bit like that. And I had to have a pouch with the neck inside the bell. Mm-hmm. And one of the other times when I was flying from America somewhere and I had to check my saxophone and it came out the other end and there was a ding in my bell because the thing had been dropped from high enough that even though the neck was wrapped up in a pouch, when the saxophone hit the deck and the neck then put a bent in the bell. So I've always been really conscious of that. So anyway, that's my one. ProTech Pro Pack. I think they're brilliant. What about you, Joel?
I've got exactly the same, Nigel.
Do you?
I do, yeah, for alto and tenor. I think they're great cases. I mean, there are some that look exactly the same. I won't say the brand, but there's a cheaper version of it that a lot of people buy. And I have to say, I went through about 6 of those in about 10 years. And then I thought, I'll just spend the extra money and buy the ProTech. And I've probably had the ProTech for about 13 years. And it's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with it at all. It's so don't buy the cheap ones. Just spend the extra £100 and get the
Absolutely.
ProTech ones if that's what you're after. And like you said, they're just great. The pocket size on the side of them is brilliant. You can get all sorts in, as you'll discover when I start reaming off the list of things I carry around with me in my sax case. But yeah, I really like them. And I've had a few different other ones over the years, but ProTech's the one for me for a long time now. Same for my alto. I've got the identical one for my alto. I also like that you can get the add-on where you can get the backpack straps for them as well, which is normally actually extra. You've got to buy them separate unless you find a deal or whatever. But that's great just as a way of carrying it rather than just handled all the time, and pretty comfy actually. I too have back issues. I think it's just a sax player thing, but yeah, I find it quite a comfy case to lug around as well from that point of view, and it does pretty well on planes. Once again, I'd never put it in the hold, and I've exactly the same things as you guys when it has been in the hold. In fact, my saxophone, they decided the damage done to it, because it was completely unplayable, could only have occurred if at some point the pressure of the landing of the takeoff had took my nice straight saxophone and flexed it quickly like that, because every rod had popped out of every socket possible on the entire thing. I mean, it was absolutely destroyed like an hour before a gig. Luckily, I found somebody to lend me a saxophone and fix it and stuff like that. But yeah, I've had that a couple of times. So yeah, don't put it in the hold, I think is the...
Well, but sometimes, unfortunately, your hands are tied. You are forced in a situation where you're literally about to get on the plane and they take it out of your hands. Anyway, I two quick things to add before we move on, because we've got quite a lot to talk about today, actually. I did notice today I was looking at the ProTech cases, because I, like you, Joel, have had mine probably 13 or 15 years. Brilliant. Still looks like new. They do now one with an extra long pocket on it. And I thought, oh, that sounds like a great option. But the second thing I was going to say is I had the opportunity a few years ago to test, actually on one of those trips where I went to Canada, a BAM case. And I think if I was buying a new case, they are absolutely my favorite. They do some shaped ones and some big rectangular ones as well, but they just seem really, really great quality, lovely the way they're finished. They look fantastic and very secure, but they're a lot more expensive. So that's probably in between the ProTech. Then you've got the BAM in the middle, and then you've got the Rolls-Royce one that Fred has, because he's that kind of guy. Yeah, SJQ. Okay, so we've talked about cases. So I guess the first thing above that then is like your standard stuff that you've got to have. You're going to have a case. You're going to have your saxophone with you, of course. Do you guys all, you mentioned, Fred, that you carry a spare neck strap. That's something I've always done as well. Do you, Joel? Or you don't use a neck strap?
I don't use a neck strap, but I still have a spare neck strap.
Right, just
because
in case.
If the stand that I use breaks or something, I still need something. So yeah, I've got a spare neck strap in my case, and I've got one in my car.
Have you really? Wow, you've got a backup of a backup.
Yeah,
and,
it's with my spare tyre. It's stuffed in with my spare tyre.
No.
That's a whole
It's
nother
probably not in great
conversation.
condition anymore, but it's there for an emergency. Yeah.
Are you by any chance wearing a belt and suspenders right now?
Always, Fred. And braces.
And braces, just can't be too careful. So I was wondering about this actually. Do you guys carry spare backup mouthpieces with you as well?
No.
Because I never did. I've never carried a spare. I've got a lot of mouthpieces now, but historically I always just had the one mouthpiece. What about you, Fred?
I did at one point, I think, when I was on the road for an extended period of time, like if we would go out for like a month, I think I used to carry an extra mouthpiece, but I never had any reason to use it. Never happened. But now I don't. I'm just,
Yeah, I never bothered either. But what about the other thing that I always have in my saxophone case, which is one of the reasons why I love the big pocket on these cases, is a saxophone stand. So rather than having to carry something extra, I pack it straight into the side pocket in the ProTech case. And I've got a couple of options. I'd be curious to see what you guys like. My favorite one, if I'm flying, is this one, which is a Koenig and Meyer. It's called the Saxy, Saaxy stand, and it's a really cool tubular design. They're very compact, they're small, and I think they're great. And I've used it for a million gigs. But the one I prefer, if I am not so conscious about weight, are the Hercules folding stands, because they also fold down really small, and they're very strong, but they're just a bit heavier. What about you, Fred? What do you use?
Well, I don't put it in my sax case, and I'm usually 9 times out of 10, if I have my saxophone on with me, I also have my computer bag with me, which also has all sorts of extra stuff in there, and that I will put that. I use the Hercules as well. probably have half a dozen of them because I don't want to leave them anywhere. So I keep everything. I want to make sure I've got one in the other bag with my my sound equipment, and then on the road the band has one for me there. They're all over the place. So that's the one I use. The Hercules.
They're great, aren't they? I've got a bunch of them here as well. I like the tall ones. This is the tall Hercules stand.
I've got that too.
Have you? Yeah, and even
tenor,
all those ones that are on the wall over there, they're all the tops of Hercules stands. I just think they're really good, because there's nothing worse than a cheap saxophone stand. You put your saxophone and it slides off. Awful. Yep. What do you do, Joel? Because you've got your
Hercules all the way for me as well.
We should be
I think we're all in agreement. I mean, that mechanism they've got that grabs the saxophone. There's something about it. I just feel that it's always a lot safer. So whether it's on one of the tall ones or one of the shorter ones, that grabbing mechanism when you put the weight of the saxophone on, I just think, what a brilliant idea, because it is really well held, and I've seen my sax get bumped into and stuff, and it doesn't fall off, where other stands. I've seen saxophones fall off, including my own in the past. So all of mine are Hercules as well. So I think they've cornered the market for us tutors at sax school, at least.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's because they're very, very good. Okay, so we've talked about the saxophone, the case, mouthpiece, and neck straps, and sax stands. But I know a hot topic amongst our tutors and also amongst our students over at Sax School are reeds and how we care for reeds. Now, I'm going to go first because mine is the simplest one. For about, I don't know, maybe a decade now, I've just exclusively been using synthetic reeds, and I love them. I don't care what anyone thinks. I like them. And that means that I can minimize the amount of stuff I need to carry with me, because they last longer. I don't need to have anything to adjust them or anything. What about you, Fred? What do you do with your reeds?
Well, I feel like this whole thing could be a whole other podcast right now. We're getting into this rabbit hole.
Well, all I really want to know, because we're talking about everyday carry, right? I want to talk about, how do you carry your reeds? Do you carry lots of extra reeds? Do you carry reed adjusting equipment with you?
Yes, and yes. I carry with me, I started out with this, which obviously if you're listening to this, you can't see it. It's called the Rejuvenate, and it's a little tubular thing, and it carries 3 reeds. And when I got it, didn't look anything like this. It had the reeds in a kind of triangular thing, and I didn't like it because I thought the reeds got a little bent. So now I just use this, and I have 3, plastic reed cases in here. And the thing, and Joel and I will go back and forth on this, I'm sure, is I soak my reeds. I don't want to say I soak them because I don't soak them, but I keep my reeds in Listerine, brown Listerine, the original flavor. All the other ones have sugar in them. All the other Listerine flavors, the mint and all that stuff, has sugar in them, and they will contribute to mold. But these, and I don't soak them. I have a sponge at the bottom and a sponge at the top that I cut, and then I keep them in here. So they're not soaking, but they're in there. And then I have those 3 reeds, good reeds, that's in my back pocket and any gig. And then I also have this, which I got turned on to. It's by a company called Witz, W-I-T-Z. It's called the Keep It Safe. You can get it on Amazon. It will hold 10 reeds in I got turned on to it by my friend Bob Francisini, fantastic sax player from New York. And he puts Listerine in here, but he soaks them in Listerine. Again, I don't do that. I have a sponge that I cut at the top and a kitchen sponge that's at the bottom, and I usually have 10 reeds in here. So I'm at any time have 13 reeds that I know are playable.
Yeah, and those
And
are
that's what
reeds
I
that
do.
you've already vetted, you've chosen them, you've selected
Yes.
them, you've nurtured them lovingly. Right.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right, I love that. And, I also like the fact you've got two different types of cases and you're very systematic about your Listerine brown.
Well,
Very
it has
good.
to be. It has.
Yeah.
It has to be because if all the other ones have xylitol in it, and that will mold your reeds.
There you go. And if you don't want to go for Listerine, you could always go vodka.
Joel's route.
So, Joel, tell us quickly, in a
so
nutshell,
mine's
what you
very,
carry.
very similar because obviously that brown Listerine's good because it's kind of got alcohol content, no sugar, and I just thought, well, if that's what it's all about, let's just stick them in vodka. So I just keep mine literally soaked permanently, like the Mary Rose of ships brought up from the depths that need to permanently stay kind of moist. They live in vodka all the time. So I have this little bottle, goes in my case, fits absolutely perfectly. I've probably got about 5 or 6 tenor reeds and maybe 4 or 5 alto reeds in there. So plenty of reeds. And
Okay, hang on. So that's interesting. So you mix them up. They aren't case instrument specific then. They're like across all of your saxophones.
just reeds, aren't they? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But what
Reeds
about
in
if
They're
vodka.
not just reeds. You can't play a tenor reed on alto.
No. And
Well,
what happens if you're on
I
a
guess you
gig
could, actually.
and you need to, do you put that in your case then?
Yeah, it goes in the case. So basically, I take this, I've got like a lint-free cloth, I wrap it in that cloth and I put it in a Sealy bag, and then it goes in the side bit of my case. Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely
love
fine.
it. Okay, cool.
Is that
Plastic,
glass or
no, it's
plastic?
plastic,
Okay.
not glass, obviously, that probably wouldn't turn out well.
You say that, although what I used to do, I mean, years and years ago, when I was doing lots of sort of more full-on classical stuff, I actually went to a glass merchant and got a piece of glass cut that was very strong and a few rubber bands. And I used to keep all my reeds on the piece of glass held up with rubber bands in a bag, and that worked. I used that for years. Very low tech. Well, you like that, yeah. Which was fantastic. Okay, great. So those are all your basics. Now, you're probably listening to this thinking, well, I do some version of that already. But there's more stuff that I think is really important. And maybe that's what we can talk about next. So like the things that we carry that mitigate disasters when we're traveling. So I'm really curious to hear what sort of things like this that you guys have. I'll go first though. Oh, one thing we didn't mention actually is cleaning kit. So I always carry a couple of microfiber swabs with me, like a mouthpiece one and a body one. And really, those are the only cleaning things that I carry. But that's enough. 2 of those, and that they do the trick. What do you use, Fred? Actually, do you have cleaning swabs?
I don't carry anything with me, and it's pretty gross, I have to say. If you took a look at my neck, I let my saxophone to Bob Reynolds when I went to the saxophone camp many years ago, and he just looked at it, and it was caked. The neck it's just gross. I hadn't cleaned it in a while. It's pretty, but I do clean it at home. But I don't clean it when I'm out on the road. I don't bring any of that stuff with me.
boy.
I'm not meticulous when it comes to that stuff.
Right.
Do as I say, not as I do.
There you go. So this is what I carry. I have a little, this is actually a pouch for like a microphone. And in here is my repair kit. So I do carry this with me all the time. And should I quickly run through what I've got in here? So
Please.
because
Go
I'm
on then,
curious
go
to
on.
see if you guys, I want to know what he's got in his bag. What's he got in there? Because you guys probably have a version of this as well. These things, though, I should just say, are things that I've accumulated over time because I've been in a situation where I needed something and I didn't have it. So I started to assemble it. So basically, here's what I've got. I've got some contact adhesive. That's a bigger tube than I would normally have, but contact adhesive is great if you've got a piece of cork that falls off or a button that falls off the front of your key or something. I've got some PTFE tape. So this is like plumber's PTFE tape. Brilliant if your mouthpiece is loose on your neck cork. Sometimes you're in a situation where it might also not just be for you, but for someone else in the saxophone section where, that they've got a different mouthpiece and it's really loose and it's easier than using a piece of paper to wrap around it. I've got some mouthpiece patches. They always need replacing. I've got a tube of like super glue, like what do you call this?
Super glue.
Super glue, yeah. Because that can be good for other things. A really quick cork repair. If a cork drops off, middle of a gig, you need to get it on quick. It's quicker than contact cement. I've got a bunch of rubber bands. I've got some strips of sandpaper, and I've got some pieces of cork. Fred's shaking his head, thinking, "Who is this bloke?"
Wow.
I've obviously got some cork grease because everyone has to have some cork grease. And I've got a couple of different screwdrivers. So these are like little like jewelry type screwdrivers, but the ones that you can tighten up, a loose screw or this is something that happens more often than you think when you're doing a lot of gigs. I've been on gigs where people's keys have literally fallen off their saxophones. What do I do now? And that's another thing that the rubber bands are good for, because sometimes springs can break, right? I've had that happen too, and a key's flapping around and you can't get through a gig. And that's pretty much it. I've got a fancy pair of pliers in here, which probably is more overkill than what I need. But the other thing I've got in here, which is a cool extra thing, if you want to get some brownie bonus points, I bought a set of, I think these were like dental tools off eBay or Amazon or something, super cheap, but only because this is a thing with a hook on it, where if you got one of those tricky springs that you can't get back on, you can reach in and hook it on.
Ooh, I like that, Nigel. I'm going to get one of those.
It was super cheap. It's never gone in anybody's mouth, but I tell you what, it's really helped me out a few times with sorting out a wayward spring. So that's my repair kit, and I find that really, really helpful.
Oh, it's like we're separated at birth there, Nigel, with that one. It's mine is almost identical. I've even got it in a mic case. It's a Shure Zip kind of from an SM57 or something like that I had years ago.
It's amazing.
But literally, I've got exactly what you've got in there. Apart from that little clip, I must get one of those. I think the only other things that I've got in mine, I've got some O-rings, because they can be useful as bit stronger elastic bands in some things. And I've got some felt as well. I've got some felt in there.
Oh, that's good.
And then a couple of reed repair-y type things. So I've got a reed clipper. Obviously, you're not going to use that with synthetics, but it's great. Really good. Bit old school these days. No one seems to talk about them anymore, but great. They just basically take those minute, like 0.1 of a mil off the very tip of your reed, and it can just kind of save that reed enough for to live another day from that point of view. And also the Reed Geek, just not. I don't know why it's in there, to be honest, because I tend to process my reeds before they live in the vodka, but it's just in there. Maybe somebody else needs it, or they've got a dodgy reed, and like I said, it's kind of a pack for everyone, isn't it? You're kind of thinking about.
That's exactly right. I think the Reed Geek is a brilliant tool because, before I was using synthetic reeds, I was using cane reeds, of course, and so I did always carry a Reed Geek with me and a reed clipper. I've had one of them since I was a teenager. But I actually used to use a reed knife for a number of years until I started flying to gigs. And then I realized you really can't fly with a knife in your saxophone case. No. It causes all sorts of troubles. But a Reed Geek, you could get through security, no problem with that.
Yeah. I think I've also got, did you say you had some scissors? I've got some scissors, a little pair of scissors.
I don't, but I've got something else that I carry, which we'll talk about in a minute, which solves the scissors thing. I carry a Leatherman. I carry a Leatherman in my saxophone case. Which is it's got scissors. Fred's like shaking his head. Who is this fella? Who is this person?
Well, you're definitely not going to be able to fly with any of that stuff. That's the other thing.
No, but the Leatherman you can stick in your bag. But I mean, everything else I can carry with. In fact, I've taken these. I think sometimes if I'm flying, I'll take that pouch out and I'll put it in my suitcase, and then I'll put it back in the case.
Right.
I do that, and I do that actually going back to sax stands, because I do like the tall sax stand, and actually that does fit in a suitcase. So I tend to put that in my suitcase if I'm going abroad with me kit as well. So anything like that, you can stick it in.
Fred, do you take any repair-y sort of stuff with you?
Not a thing. I rely on somebody like you being on the gig is what I do. Cliff is my guy for that. Cliff usually has a screwdriver, or I have cork grease, and I have the little piece of suede that if you have a sticky pad, you can stick that under there. And occasionally, I think I used to have a reed clipper in there. I have the Reed Geek, and I use it almost every time I play. I use it. I flatten out the plane because your reeds can get a little bit warped all the time, and you just flatten out the
back
table. Right?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
The table of the reed, and that I have, and that's pretty much it. I don't really, I wouldn't know. I'm a horrible when it comes to repairing a saxophone to begin with, so I probably wouldn't know what to do with any of that stuff. Maybe rubber band I can handle, but no. And I think I sometimes have a screwdriver in there. But you guys, I see. That's the thing. I got to have you guys or somebody like you on every gig.
Well, years ago, there was a few years where I was running bands on cruise ships where I would be away for 5 months, and sometimes if you were around the States, maybe you might there were times where I went in. We were in dock in New York, and I went in to a music shop to get something done. But there was lots of times where I was somewhere where I couldn't get to repair it. There's no chance of it at all. So I've had to have stuff with me to be able to fix things on the road. Thankfully, not many issues occur if you've got a newer saxophone. I've always preferred more modern saxophones than vintage ones. Okay, so we've talked about all the basic stuff. We've talked about some repairy stuff. What about are there any extra things that you guys carry that we haven't covered yet?
I've got a few bits. I've got a few.
Come on, then,
I'll
Joel.
bet you do.
I've got a few
this is the
extra
part
bits
I've
in
been
there.
waiting for. This is the part I've been waiting for.
Well, just one, I think, quite sensible thing to have in is, no one has these anymore, but I've still got some old ones. I've got some business cards in there, just in case your saxophone gets lost, so having an address tag or these days an email address or something, I think it's probably a pretty sensible idea to have in your Sax case. Otherwise, it'll maybe never get back to you. But the other things that I've got in there, because they actually have turned out to be really useful, is I have some gaffer tape. And I've also got a silver Sharpie for kind of writing on things like gaffer tape and stuff like that, because there's always leads and stuff. You've got to be careful these days. You'll get sued at the drop of the hat if someone trips over your mic lead, and if the sound engineers or whatever haven't got any, or they're just not very good at the job, then sometimes actually just taping it down, at least taping yours down, is a good idea. And it's been really useful for all sorts of things, kind of rips in stuff. Sometimes I've even used gaffer tape when it's kind of been a bit breezy and stuck my music to the music stand. It comes in for it's gaffer tape, what's not to like. So, some gaffer tape. It's another reason I've got scissors in my case. Gaffer tape. A couple of Sharpies, as well as some just good pens and stuff for writing on music, and pencils and stuff like that. So pretty much everything you could ever
fantastic.
need.
I definitely agree with the gaffer tapes. I was doing for a number of years gigging all the time with a smaller group, and so I always had a roll of gaffer tape, and I always had Sharpies, because I'd be writing set lists, and we didn't use any music; it was all memorized, but I was every gig writing a set list, and a Sharpie and a block of paper means you can write a set list for quick, down and dirty, and it comes in handy. The other thing that I have in my bag is a book of manuscript paper and some pencils, because if you're doing normal gigs, this is pre-PDFs, I suppose. I mean, a pencil is like an essential saxophone player's tool, and a block of manuscript is always useful, because I've done lots of arranging and band leading in my career, and it's really useful for just quickly sketching something out to give to somebody. Well, what's this? How does that work? So that's something that's always been living in my saxophone case.
I think you've got more in your saxophone case than I have, Nigel.
I don't think that's possible.
I think you have.
Maybe you just pack more efficiently than me. So we've got some really good ideas there, and I'll be curious to know if you're listening to this and think, I've got something that none of you have thought about. Well, maybe you can share that in a comment down below, or send us an email. And also, if you've enjoyed this episode, it'd be awesome if you could give us a 5-star review, or maybe share it with somebody else that you think might enjoy it. What do you reckon, guys? Should we put this list together and make it available on the blog?
Yes, let's do that.
Absolutely.
I think we should. If you'd like to get hold of that list, we'll put it over where all of our podcast episodes live. That's at saxcallonline.com/podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks, guys. It's been really good talking through this. And the problem I've got now is I've pulled everything out my saxophone case. I've got to pack it all back in again.
Now you got to put it all back.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Keep practicing out. We'll catch you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.